We're going to continue going through some of the parables of Jesus that maybe we don't spend a whole lot of time on. And as we read the parable, I want you to be asking yourself, what parable does this sound like? What does this remind me of? And yet, how is it different? Oftentimes, when I do studies or when I preach lessons, I might use similar examples or even use the same example to make different points. And that's one of the unique things we see about Jesus here. He does a great job of utilizing his wisdom to convey different lessons to his audience. So we're going to be looking at the parable found in Luke 19 today. Luke 19, called the parable of the 10 minas, or the parable of the money usage, as your translation might read. It reads, "While they were listening to these things, Jesus went on to tell a parable, because he was near Jerusalem, and they supposed that the kingdom of God was going to appear immediately. So he said, a nobleman went to a distant country to receive a kingdom for himself, and then return. And he called 10 of his slaves, and gave them 10 minas, and said to them, do business with this until I come back. But his citizens hated him, and he sent a delegation after him, saying, we do not want this man to reign over us. When he returned, after receiving the kingdom, he ordered that these slaves, to whom he had given the money, be called to him, so that he might know what business they had done. The first appeared, saying, Master, your mina has made 10 minas more. And he said to him, well done, good slave. Because you have been faithful in a very little thing, you are to be an authority over 10 cities. The second came, saying, your mina, master, has made 5 minas. He said to him also, and you are to be over 5 cities. Another came, saying, Master, here is your mina, which I kept put away in a handkerchief, for I was afraid of you, because you are an exacting man. You take up what you did not lay down, and reap what you did not sow. And he said to him, by your own words I will judge you, you worthless slave. Did you know that I am an exacting man, taking up what I did not lay down, and reaping what I did not sow? Then why did you not put my money in the bank, and having come, I would have collected it with interest? Then he said to the bystanders, take the mina away from him, and give it to the one who has 10 minas. And they said to him, Master, he has 10 minas already. But I tell you that everyone who has, more shall be given. But from the one who does not have, even what he has shall be taken away. But these enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slay them in my presence." So at first glance, when you hear this sounds a lot like the parable of the talents, another parable in which Jesus was trying to convey the responsibility that one is supposed to have with the things that God has given them. But here in this parable, we see some differences. This is not the same lesson as the parable of the talents. We see some interesting things pop up in this parable, and while we don't have time to discuss all of them, there's a few things I want to point out in the text today. First and foremost, Jesus starts off by calling 10 slaves, and he gives to each one of them these 10 minas. And the lesson for us to take from that is that there are certain gifts and talents, things that God gives to every single Christian. Every single one of us has the gift of grace, has the gift of salvation. Every single one of us has the opportunity to come into the fold of God's family and be adopted as his child. We are all given the same opportunities. And yet, as you continue to read the parable, you see some things that stand out to you. The first one comes and he says, look, at this great percentage, this percentage of 1,000% that I've gained from your mina. And it's interesting to note that in every single one of these servants, they address, this is not my money, this is your mina. And what is the reward that they receive for their great work, the 10 minas and the 5 minas man? They receive the opportunity to do more work. And that's where you and I need to understand a lesson in this parable. Has God given you work? Have you been a good steward with the things around you, with the studies you've been doing, with the souls that are immediately around you? Have you been a good steward as an elder to direct the sheep? Have you been a good member of your household? Well, we don't get breaks. We don't get vacations. One of the most amazing things about God is that He says, you've been faithful with a little, now I'm going to give you more. I want you to keep working in my kingdom. I'm going to provide you with more responsibility because I know that you've been responsible already with the things I've given you. And this is a wonderful reminder to us to always be diligently seeking to do the Lord's will in the things that we have around us. But I want to take special note too of the last man, the last slave, who says to the master, I didn't do anything with your mina. I went and I hid it away because I have this concept and this idea of what kind of master you are. And the master comes and says, well, you say I'm that kind of master. You say I'm this kind of ruler. Then why didn't you do something more? Maybe you have a conception or a perception of God in your mind that God is a very judgmental God, that God is a very hard God, that God is a God who expects a lot. If that is in fact your view of God, what are you doing then to make sure that you're working diligently for that master? Because the master goes on to say, it is by your words that I will judge you. It is by your concept and your perception that I will judge you. And he calls this slave wicked. And oftentimes the reason we don't step out of our comfort zones and serve the Lord as we ought to, the reason we hide away the things that God has given us, is simply because we are wicked and lazy and afraid. And our concept of God and our view of God does not drive us to better serve Him, to be more zealous to do His will in our lives. That's our time for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to listen to any future sermons or any other sermons that have already been recorded, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel. You can click on the links listed over here if you want to go back and listen to the sermons from the past week. And we hope that if you have any questions that you will reach out to us. We're located here at Studebaker Road, Church of Christ in Long Beach. And please feel free to send out an email to either myself or Mark if we can assist you in any way with future studies. Thank you.